Ready to roll from the starting gate on this Thursday afternoon, July the 6th, here at Gulfstream Park. Delighted to have you with us as we set sail. Gulfstream today. Jason Blue and Acacia Courtney from our paddock studios. Another warm one here in South Florida. But the good news, we're back in action with a four-day racing week after a unforgettable 4th of July in front of a very big crowd.
It was packed here. We had fireworks in the evening, 2 stakes on the card. But of course, the story of that day was that Tyler Gaffalione tying the record set by Jerry Bailey in 1995 on Florida Derby Day for 7 wins in one day. And we're going to give you a little montage just kind of going through that afternoon on Tuesday. So close to 8, a couple of seconds as well, but just some really impressive finishes as well.
And the real cool thing is, I was reading Mike Welsh's recap of the 4th of July fireworks on the track here with Tyler Gaffalione, and Tyler's idol is the great retired Hall of Famer Jerry Bailey, and he certainly emulated him the right way on this Independence Day card. A mix of different trips and different tactics, and the thing that's impressed me most is a few things. Being kind of a newbie around these parts, it's been a lot of fun to watch Tyler ride, and he is just really impressed me with his confidence, his preparation, and his athleticism. He looks very pretty on a horse, certainly setting a horse down, and we'll see what he can do as he enters this Thursday card occasion with 10 races at Gulfstream Park, #1 in the nation in victories with 165, and he'll be riding Saturday up north at Belmont Park for Nick Zito on that Stars and Stripes card.
Yes, he's traveled quite a bit as well this past year, and not only doing well here at Gulfstream, but also having some success nationally, so that's great to see as well. And best of luck to Tyler for the rest of the year, because we can only imagine there'll be more victories on tap for him. And one of the things that most impressed me about his riding style is the way he can get a lot out of a horse just out of a hand ride in the stretch. So I think that pretty special to see that on Tuesday. I know we were all rooting for him, and pretty cool to see the record tied.
Great, and no one's comparing. I saw some comments afterwards. No one's comparing 7-7, and the numbers are the numbers, and that's fact. But again, I think he'd be the first to say winning 7 on Florida Derby Day versus 7 on July 1st. 2 very different animals to an extent, but nonetheless a tremendous accomplishment. And of course, Tyler Gaffalione writing himself into the Gulfstream Park history books. He is set, by the way, and he's got an agent's agent in his corner, and Matt Musiker just does a great job. Tyler riding in 5 races this afternoon. You'll be working on more than 5 races Friday here at Gulfstream Park. In fact, it's another Twilight Friday afternoon, a late post of 2:15, 9 races on tap. And how's a little Friday Beat the Expert sounding with you in the corner?
I'm up today trying to look intimidating. Now, 9 races is what you have to do. As Jason said, we do start later for that Twilight Racing live music later on in the day, but hopefully you can play. It's free to play, of course. Go to our Facebook page. You could have the chance to win one of those great hashtag Beat the Expert polos, plus the bragging rights. That hasn't been that hard to do, as Friday does seem to be a little bit of a curse for me, but my picks are in, so head on over and enter.
Yeah, GulfstreamPark.com. All of our picks are up there if you want to check them out. Acacia does a great job. It's good to have you back here as we settle in, and we'll give you a little rundown before we talk about who we like and why for this 10-race card as far as what's on tap with the multi-race wagers and the dollar rolling Super High 5 carryover, which gets underway in the first, a field of 7, just under 3 Gs in the pool, and that'll coincide at around 1:15 with the first post and the first leg of Thursday's early pick 5 amid fast and firm conditions. And you're back at it. In addition to the Friday Beat the Expert, which is free to play, you'll be giving out a Rainbow Six ticket later on this show.
Yes, we're starting to build once again nearly $52,000 in that pool after we did wrap up the spring meet with the mandatory payout last week. So we're slowly growing again. That sequence starts in the 5th race today, and then we cap things off with the 50-cent late pick 5.
Giving out a ticket in that as well. So let's get tied on. Again, we want you to grab both reins as we throttle it from the starting gate on this edition of Gulfstream today. Again, fast and firm. Plenty of turf to go around on this Thursday, July the 6th. And a turf race is where the card, the week, and of course the early pick 5 begin at a little after 1:15 p.m. Little rundown as far as who I'm using and why, and some notes here. And Tyler Gaffalione on my ticket, in the words of the great Ryan John Nicoletti using Tyler in the drop down, the number 6, Thinking Cowtown. If Curlin's, the full sister to Curlin's approval doesn't take a step forward, Curlin's mistress, that is, in the second, Rainfall will be very tough to beat, you would think, off a 75 buyer. Moving on to race number 3, I'm hoping somebody can run with the big drop down the 5 thread at a short price and maybe soften her up for a late running Sassy Sierra off the claim for Gilberto Zerpa. I had no clue in race 4. It is very much a guessing game with the 7 2-year-old $25,000 maiden claimers. And we'll wrap it up with the anchor and the centerpiece, if you will, in the pick 5, the number 4, Our Gracious Girl, who did run well, maybe not as well as you would expect with the firster, who was 3 to 5 in her debut, but all things considered, over a good sealed track, it was a respectable effort. She's come back to work well since, and we'll talk a bit more about her and that field in race number 5, in which she is likely to start as a big favorite unless one of the firsters really gets bet. But moving on to Tyler Gaffalione in the first, as he looks to get off to a winning way with trainer Mike Maker and the number 2, Hanson's Girl, who the biggest issue I have with her, and clearly you agree to some extent, is she's 1 for 12 with a string of seconds. She's got to deliver a knockout punch sooner or later.
She does. She's been second in her last 2. And the short comment last time is that she's lacked room. And watching that race, she was kind of waiting for an opening. She wasn't really stuck in with no room. It was just kind of a matter of being covered up and waiting as they got into the stretch. But when she did have room, she didn't really have much punch or much follow through. And Tyler Gaffalione's been aboard for the last 3 races. She had Jose Ortiz aboard prior to that, and none of them could get her to win as of yet. So I think you do want to maybe include her, especially the streak that Tyler's been on lately, as you start that early pick 5. But I did look for alternatives as far as the win goes, just thinking she's got to prove it to me before I can put her on top and lose some more money on her. But the 3 Head for the Hills is coming off of a layoff. But I found an interesting stat for Antonio Sano. First, after a trainer switch with a 180-plus day layoff, he's 4 for 12 and 6 for 12 winning with an ROI of more than $8. So he actually has had some good prices. This one has excellent works and was just running against better before the layoff.
Yeah, intriguing face in here. We'll see how she does. I mean, the board will change a lot between now and first race start time, but if she is taking some nibbles here and some early play, she will get a test for quality, I think, off that Penn National Turf race. In the meantime, I'm towards the outside and in the camp of the number 6, Thinking Cowtown, who I think will run well today. I do believe, even though she had won during her 3-year-old season, going long on the turf, maybe 5 is where she belongs at this stage of her career, because I thought her seasonal debut back right around Preakness time on May 18th was a respectable effort behind a loose on the lead 5-time winner in My Sweet Dove. Kingston Terrace, who was 3rd in that race, has done some good things out of town. And keep in mind, Miss World Venezuela did come out of that race as well. Was DQ'd here over the weekend, but she would have been a next out winner from that May 18th affair. Maybe 7.5 furlongs, and rating her last time just didn't work out, and I'm hoping she puts in a big run from the back of the pack. The 6, Thinking Cowtown to me, Antonio Sano and Acacia in the same corner in the first. Let's move on to the second here on GP today as we go a mile, our opening race of the week here on the main track. These are 3 and up filly and mares in this $42,000 maiden special weight. They clearly have got to get around the number 3 Rainfall. She runs back to that 75 buyer most recently behind Firefoot. She's probably going to win this race and maybe win it by open length.
She is, and we'll show that race on that sealed sloppy track. This was her second start. She actually debuted on the turf, and this will be the first time that she does get onto the main track, though it was sloppy. You can see she's the number 6 there that day. And this was a little bit of an interesting race in here, as we did see Firefoot pretty impressive to get the win that day and then go on and face much tougher. But I just want to freeze right there and again draw the attention to the number 6 on the outside, because she's chasing Firefoot there, and she's definitely not going to get her. Of course, that's the winner, and we'll just let it roll from there. But I wanted to show how she did have some really nice follow through, and she was very game to hold on with maybe a filly that was just a little bit better on that day.
Yeah, stayed on very stubbornly, did the number 3 Rainfall. And Firefoot, by the way, one of 2 Pletcher firsters in this race that we just showed you. The word was out on the 3rd place runner, Sweat and Saddle, who was off a little slow and checked in 3rd at 4 to 5. But Firefoot, again, was very professional in that victory and returned to run 4th in the Azalea. And she was beaten about
finish.
this. Yeah, it was a crazy finish and a race that was really kind of bursting at the seams late in the stretch, but still a good effort from Firefoot. And we'll see what Rainfall does. The one sort of intriguing nugget that I think is worth mentioning. She's yet to run on a dry track, and she'll get that today. We'll see if the wet moved her up last time. She's just way the horse to beat. I'm in the corner of the 5, Curlin's Mistress. I like betting second-time starters, especially ones that have pedigree and good connections, and you have that. We'll give you a little rundown here with the BB for Thursday's second race, the Blewitts Bullets, with this full sister to last Saturday's Princess Rooney and Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint Bound. Curlin's approval. Her race was just a good building block kind of debut where she was lethargic and off, just didn't have much interest early on. She was very green through the stretch in a very, very sloppy sealed track debut. And I like the fact that she's likely going to show a bit more speed today, and she's posted outside of the number 3 Rainfall. I think it's a perfect post in this 6-horse field going a 1-turn mile. Couple of solid breezes since. The number 5, Curlin's approval for me. I see you'll try to get Tyler G home second with Untruthful Sonic for a 3-2 exacta.
And I do have some questions about Untruthful Sonnet as well, as she is trying the dirt for the first time. Her first 3 races were on the turf, but turf to dirt with maidens for Armando de la Cerda, that's about 26% and nearly 60% of the time in the money. I just think it's sharp connections. And this is a race that on paper kind of looks like there might not be much speed, but I think when it's run, there actually will be a lot of speed, because we could see Rainfall, second-time blinkers, and on a fast track. You mentioned Curlin's Mistress on the stretch out, and Florippa from the inside will probably show some speed as well. Maybe Untruthful Sonnet sits in the catbird seat.
All right, Filly by Broken Vow. We'll see what she can do on the dirt. She's got a real favorite, though, to beat in there in the number 3 Rainfall. On to the third race today as we continue on, and we'll shorten things up on the main track here at Gulfstream Park. Thursday's third, a 3-and-up Filly Mare 12-5 claiming race, and you might just be looking at a very short rolling double in races 2 and 3 if Rainfall does get it done as a big favorite in race number 2. On to the presence of the drop down, and it really is a precipitous kind of drop with the number 5 Threat, who, keep in mind, was claimed 3 back for the 12-5 and her 2 races for Safi off the claim against Much Better.
It was against Better, and unfortunately she did run into a sealed sloppy track 2 starts back, where she actually didn't run too badly as the favorite. That was against $30,000 claimers. Last time I think she was just outclassed a bit and running against some pretty talented fillies in there. So dropping down to a place where she's been successful before, and that's the name of the game really for this barn. They put horses where they can be successful.
And that is more than half the battle. You want to have your horses in spots they can succeed and not waste those A-type efforts. Tyler riding for trainer Safi Joseph Jr. on a horse who might just be fastest in here early on. Now, if she gets hooked or for whatever reason just doesn't bring her A game on the drop in for 12-5, I think clearly, and you agree, that Sassy Sierra, the 3-horse, is the main danger. She goes first off the claim for a very good barn here in Gilberto Zerpa. In fact, we've got a stat here to show you. And this little layoff, taking a horse out of the claim box, laying them up from a month to 3 months. It's been a solid little strike move here for trainer Gilberto Zerpa at 10 for 30 over the last 5 years, having that 30 to 90 days between starts. For the record, you've got 48 days with the 3 Sassy Sierra, and let's bury her even further. My apologies to the connections. I do think she's going to run very well today. We'll give you a little rundown here with the Bullets as she comes in off a layoff, again, just shy of 50 days. Excellent barn in the corner with the Misael Jaramillo driving, or I should say riding, and you've got the drop-down Threat, who I'm hoping she gets blasted in here early on. But is it safe to use the 3 and 5 and pretty much lock yourself up, theoretically speaking, in the third?
I would imagine, and we'll show the last race for Sassy Sierra because it was a solid effort. Now, the biggest question is that she does have to step up in class, and she's the number 3 that day. Now, I just want to freeze it there and draw an arrow to the number 6 Smart Jersey, who is the one that ended up winning, and we'll see the 3 on the outside in the white blinkers, and we'll let it roll from there because I thought that she was up close along the rail. She had to swing out. She was drifting a little bit in the stretch, and Smart Jersey was able to hold. Now, I think, all honesty, this race actually does look better on paper than it does watching it visually. So I would even say that Threat would be a potential single for a lot of people because, yes, she was technically beaten just by 3/4 of a length, but I thought it was a better effort from the top 2 finishers.
No, very good trip. And again, she was outclosed, to be fair, down on the rail with the eventual runner-up Fiona in that last out effort. If Zerpa moves her up, she's got a shot against Threat. Let's move on to the 4th Acacia as we get into the 4th leg of this early pick 5. 25. And, of course, the third leg of Thursday's early 4. 2-year-old $25,000 maiden claimers meet at 5 furlongs on the dirt. You've got that field of 7, a race dominated by first-time starters. Only 2 in here have experience. And it's probably worth starting out with the number 6 Tip Sheet by virtue of this horse, despite losing by 17 lengths, give or take, to Admiral Jimmy at this colt by Brethren, does have a race under his belt against much better.
Against much better. Admiral Jimmy did go on to be 3rd in the Tremont, so he is stakes placed now. And I like that this horse, who did debut with the blinkers on, not completely covered up with those blinkers, does take the blinkers off in here today. Most importantly, there are a couple things. It's a very big jockey change to Emmy Sale Jaramillo, and he gets a class drop into maiden claiming. I like that he has the 5 furlongs as well, because I remember talking to Stanley Gold early on in the 2-year-old season saying that he has a lot of horses in his barn that maybe just need some maiden claiming races, or they need a little bit more distance. And unfortunately, a lot of those races do start off at the 4.5, and it's a big difference from 4.5 to 5. So this one has the experience. I think all of those things together. The downside is, of course, that Brethren as a sire is just 1 for 19, but I do think that this one has some upside.
Yeah, again, the maiden 25 drop may get Brethren off the schneid, so to speak, as far as his 2-year-old runners, and Tip Sheet a major player, you would think. I guess with the 1 Duke of Miami, have you heard any steam? Anybody like their horse here for maiden 25? I haven't heard anything. This isn't a tip or anything like that, but in looking around and playing around with Formulator, this trainer, Yendri Penna, who I'm not familiar with, he is sending out the 1 Duke of Miami and the outside runner, the 7 Elastica. He's got okay numbers, this barn does, over the last 5 years. Again, a trainer I'm very unfamiliar with, and clearly there's been plenty of stopping and starting over the last 60 months, but just worth pointing out, this seems to be a barn that knows their way to get to the winner's circle with a 19-horse sample at above 30%, and I like the fact that Pena has won here at Gulfstream Park in the past. That was my guess. The 1 Duke of Miami in a race. I think the board, as far as the firsters go, will be very telling to see who they bet.
It certainly will be, and this is one you will have to keep an eye on the board. As far as the barn, they do actually have more success, I would venture a guess at Gulfstream Park West more than anything. I needed to watch one from this one. I was not about to jump in on that, but does have one sibling that did win first out, so that might be a little bit of precocity in there. This is a wide open affair, and this is one where you really do need to take a look at the horses beforehand and at the board. That's why I went with the experience.
Yeah, very dicey leg, you would think, in that early pick 5 and the early 4 to an extent, and we'll stay with the 2-year-olds and have a lot more coming your way, including Acacia's Rainbow 6 ticket, after we take this quick time out on Gulfstream today.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
It's a 10-race Thursday card today at Gulfstream Park. We're fast and firm into the bright lights of our paddock studio. We welcome you back to Gulfstream today. Jason and Acacia, the 4th of July festivities in the rearview mirror. Tyler Gaffalione's 7-win day out of the way, and that means we can focus in on Thursday's Rainbow 6.
Yes, nearly $52,000 in that pool and growing. We'll give you a look at my ticket. I'm going to spread in the first leg, and Jason and I were talking about this in the commercial. The 2-year-old races today are very tough to guess on paper, so I'm going to spread in this first leg. We do have our gracious girl with experience, though she's stepping up. A couple of first-time starters that I have some interest in, so I'm going to use pretty much all of them, and I'll use just 2 horses in the next leg that starts the Late pick 5, that's going to be Bar Libre and Venezuelan Treasure. 3 in the 7th, I think that's a pretty wide open affair as well. My single will come in the 8th. It's a guess for sure, but I'll single Mr. Sam for Armando de la Cerda and Tyler Gaffalione, who's been in very good form. And then just using 2 in the 9th and 3 in the finale as we cap things off. 28.80. Inexpensive for me today.
Oh, very inexpensive. Just under 30 bucks. Sounds pretty good with just over 51 Gs in that Rainbow Six carryover. And in talking about the 5th, clearly much like the 4th, it's almost like they're mirror images of one another. You're going to want to see the board because you do have some first-time starters in the race. You might have guessed with the live firster, so to speak, the one I've got second, the number 6, my masterpiece, rather, with the filly, a homebred by Midnight Loot, who does just kind of have a look like maybe she's the one they're going to bet in this 50K maiden claimer.
They might bet Our Gracious Girl off of her first performance, but I would imagine that My Masterpiece with Emisel Jaramillo in the saddle and out of a stakes-winning mare, that she was actually an 18-time winner on track, so she was very accomplished. This filly's by Midnight Loot, who's about 16% with two-year-old maidens. So I think that this one, and off of the nice work tab at Palm Meadows, might be the guesswork, but as I said, this is a wide-open affair.
Indeed it is. Now, the 4 Our Gracious Girl, I mean, I think reasonable thinking says she's supposed to run a little faster than her debut with that 33 Buyer. Do note, on a sealed track, maybe she didn't care for it. She had a very good trip, a race we'll show you via the Spotlight on June the 9th. I mean, if you bet her at 3 to 5, you're pretty much licking your chops midway around the far turn, and even at this point where she was sitting 3rd in that proverbial catbird seat behind 2 duelers.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll just freeze right there because I want to point out a couple others in horses in here. This is the winner, Happy River, who actually wired the field. This is a horse I think we want to keep an eye on. You also have the number 5 back here. That's Two Timing Girl, who did come back to win next time out. And then you have in the blue silks on the outside. We'll let it roll from there. That is the gray Our Gracious Girl. Now, she did drift a bit in the stretch. You can see her out a little bit wide. Usually when the track is wet and sealed like that, being off the rail actually is where you want to be, but of course that didn't really matter too much. It looked like on this day it was actually okay. I thought it was an okay race from her. Given her short price, would have liked to see a little more.
Yeah, relatively speaking, a live firster for that maiden 50 will likely beat the 4 Our Gracious Girl unless she takes a nice little step forward for Kathleen O'Connell. Moving on to race number 6 on the card, we are back on the turf here as we have a 3-and-up filly mare, 2 lifetime, $10,000 claimer with the 10-race program. We will start Thursday's late pick 5 right here at GP with this group of fillies, and we'll give you a little rundown of my play. I'm using 3, and I think the 3 logicals, and just hoping for the best in the opening leg. Ralph Zady's got my single, horse I know you're a fan of, the number 5, Little Meatball, not Papa Pig, Little Meatball today, and we'll go 3 deep in the 8th race. See, you like Mr. Sam more than I do. I'm going to use him defensively. I think there's a couple horses in there who are going to run big, mid-pack and outside. We use a couple, one turning back, and a horse just off a maiden win, who I think is properly spotted first time against winners in the 9th. And again, the last race actually took it on the chin, to be blunt about it, as far as scratches, losing a Cope and a Kabuki, who were going to take some play in that race. So anyway, let's get on to the 6th, and we've got a spotlight to show everybody here. Venezuelan Treasure, who, as far as getting any sort of position, this horse just wasn't able to do so from a tough outside post last time.
A tough outside post. You put it perfectly. You could see the number 10 there. Unfortunately, had to be pushed out a little bit, even on the first turn. And we're going to let it go along the backside, just kind of talk over this a little bit. What I do really want to highlight is as we'll get closer to the far turn, because he's back in the back there. You actually can't even see her. She's just off your screen right now. Compromised by the post. Usually she is a horse that's going to be just a little bit closer. Now, I do think Bar Libre, if she sits closer like she did 2 starts back, is the one to be in here. But now we'll just freeze right there because I want to draw attention to the red and yellow silks again, and this is where we're really going to start watching. We're not going to go all the way through the wire. We'll let it roll from there. Venezuelan Treasure, as she starts to move as they get closer and closer to the far turn, just ends up getting pushed out so wide. And I think it's a tough trip for her, that you do have to be a little bit more forgiving of that last race.
Yeah, and this seems like a race, and I totally agree regarding that June 11th effort, as Luca Panici, who's been riding the turf very well here at Gulfstream, he'll take over the controls for trainer Oscar Gonzalez. And the way this race just shapes up on paper, there aren't a ton of horses who are like super sharp or like consistently in form at this level and look like maybe they've timed it right. So that being said, even though her overall form is kind of so-so, she is most definitely a major player. I mean, you're just not going to win turf races anywhere, let alone at Gulfstream Park with the trip that she pulled. You kind of hit it on the head, though, in me picking the number 2 Bar Libre, and you picked her on top as well. You'd like to see, and with Peace and Love, this is a pretty big change, jockey change to Jaramillo. You'd like to see her or him get her a little more in the game early.
Would certainly think that. That's where she was most successful in her maiden win in her first start against Winners, where she was beaten just a neck, and she was a nice 5-to-1 price. And both of those, I don't think you're going to get that today.
No, she definitely appears a major player. I didn't see the morning line. Might just be favored, switching to Jaramillo with that early speed in the past. To the 7th we go, and it's the main track here as we start the final pick 4 with the field of 5. These are 3 and up, 6,250 claimers. A couple of scratches in here. In fact, a trio of scratches leaves us with a 5-horse field, and that may make the 5 little meatball, who I planned on singling even before scratches, that much tougher at that much of a shorter price. Just a quick rundown here in case you haven't been watching Gulfstream Park. Trainer Ralph Zadie over the last 90 days has been, wow, just under 40%. He is just firing that barn on all cylinders, and man, this horse does look tough to beat, Acacia.
Certainly does. Was beaten 90 cents to the dollar last time out behind My Johnny Be Good. He is a scratch today, so he doesn't have to deal with My Johnny Be Good in here. Edgar Zaya is going to be in the saddle. This one I think is best at that 6,250 level, as opposed to trying a little bit tougher or a different distance or anything like that. I did have a little bit of interest in the class dropper in More Applause. He did win on the slop last time out, but 2 races prior to that, at a little bit tougher and at this level, were actually very good. He might be a little bit of a price horse to include.
All right, down the road we go. Race number 8, and a good amount of turf late in the card. In fact, a couple of grassers on the program here from the 8th on as we go. The 2-turn mile in this 3 and up $10,000 claiming race. Why don't we show the spotlight of Mr. Sam, who's coming out of, at least in my estimation, kind of a one-pace, no-punch trip where he worked out, I thought, a pretty good trip and ride beneath Tyler Gaffalione on the rail.
He did. It was not an easy one for him. He was a little bit bottled up there. The 8 on the lead is Weeza Gone Gray, who we know is a pace setter, and I'll just freeze right there and highlight the number 3, Mr. Sam. He's right there waiting for room, and we'll let it go just down to the wire. But he was beaten at 9-5, but Starship Rocky was the 2 on the outside. He is the one that did close best of all into a race where it looked like it was a little bit difficult to actually close into.
Yeah, everybody was one pace in that first flight. A nice effort from off the pace once again with the winner out in the middle of the turf course. I am hoping to pull off a slight upset here, not trying to reinvent the wheel, but I do think the 5 recalibrating will run well on a quick turnaround. This horse just in action about 8 days ago. I think he's better than his most recent, and he's got some respectable efforts here on the GP turf in April and May that make him a contender. And maybe the 9 Wolf Dance just is way off form, and even running back for 10K, maybe it won't do any good. But I'm chalking up his last to A, a bad post, and B, a turf course that was listed good. I do think he's better than his last shows, and I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, for sure. He was a bubbler for me. I actually picked him last time.
You liked him last time, and I thought he would run really well, but again,
maybe today.
Yeah, maybe the rain softened turf, and again from that post, and the fact that, well, you're off the Wolf Dance bandwagon, not even in the Super.
Maybe I talked him into the winner's circle now.
Let's wrap things up on the main track as we keep the pace going here. We'll get Pete Aiello up with the changes in a few seconds. 6,250 bottom level claimers here in race number 9, going 7 furlongs on the dirt, and a race in which, and we talked about it earlier with Safi Joseph Jr., setting your horses up in spots where they concede and can succeed and not waste those A efforts. I'm hoping the 7 Knockout Ranger, who's an old JBM, a just broke maiden, in for the 62.50 off a daylight score. I like him to come right back here for trainer Larry Pilati.
It took him a while to break his maiden, but maybe now he's kind of got things figured out. He does have Jaramillo up, which I do think is a positive for him today. As far as in those multis, I would just use the 1 and the 7, as unfortunately the 6 high dandy seems to kind of be stuck finishing in the money, but I did land on the number 1 Coxon for Yvonne Bolster, who first off the claim over the past 5 years is actually a 19% and 37% in the money. A lot of horses at Tampa, but I think this one will be the speed from the rail.
And it seems like this is a barn and just outfit, kind of a wise guy type outfit. Their horses have been running okay.
Yes.
Not winning all the time, but running well at some big prices. And Coxon, no doubt, a major player in our last dirt race on the card. And the last race, period, where the curtain comes down, is Thursday's 10th, a 12-5 maiden claimer on the turf. These are 3 and up fillies and mares. I was a fan of the 3 Cope, that horse out. The 4 Kabuki was going to take some money as well. She is out. I wind up going with the 6, the Blonde, who's coming out of a race in which she had very little chance with that slow pace towards the front of the pack. Speeds wound up carrying in that race. Irish Star, the winner, was an even money favorite. A good spot, especially after scratches, for the 6, the Blonde, who you didn't pick on top.
I picked this horse so many times, too, and I actually thought last time when I did jump off the bandwagon, she was going to get the win, but it turned out to be a productive race. 2 next out winners, including Irish Star. I landed on the first-time starter. A career for Ralph Nix and Tyler Gaffalione. Actually, first-time starters in maiden claiming is a positive for this barn, so I did land on that one. A little bit of a long shot is the one Search for Sammy, who was impressed with physically last time.
Oh, I like hearing that. You can certainly keep us up to speed with how the firster for Goldmark Farm looked. Top connections in the corner of that Broken Vow filly. As we say goodbye, we'll have Ron, myself, and Acacia with you all day long from the walking ring, and the voice of Gulfstream Park, the one and only track announcer Pete Aiello, is coming up in just a few short seconds with Thursday's Scratches and Changes.